Alright, so I'm trying this for the third or fourth time or whatever, but it looks like it's working. So anyway, hi everybody. It's been a while, and I've been told in a previous video to talk about silver more often. So good, I'll do that. So I have 3 bars of silver. That's why I'm interested in silver more than gold. It's a poor man's gold, as they say. So let's talk about silver real quick. Oh, and I've been away for a bit because I got a new computer and I was trying to set it up. Cost me $150, by the way. Not too bad. It was just a bare bones computer. I took the hard drive and a few other components from my old computer and put it into my new computer, and it works awesome. That was the smartest thing I ever did, and thanks to people I know like Jay and Mike, thank you very much for the help. So anyway, let's talk about silver. We got a record high again today, as if I'm not surprised by this at all. Just think about monetary theory, Austrian theory, economic theory. Think about booms and busts. Think about inflation, what really inflation is, and you will not be surprised by what's happening at all right now. It's $26.72 right now. It's what? November 5th, 2010. So it ended today, and it'll end the week with $26.72. So that means my 3 bars of silver is $800 ish. So yeah, basically this is happening because of you're inflating the money supply. We had quantitative easing twice, I think, from what I understand. We'll have another 2 rounds of quantitative easing. We had the bailouts 2 years ago. And from what I gather, this doubled M1, which never happened before in the history of the Federal Reserve. But basically, they pumped actual currency, and this changed M1 from a ratio of 7.5% to 13% of the whole money supply. M1 changed from 7.5% of the whole money supply to 13%. That's bad. I don't care what you say, that is bad. Oh, but we gotta save the banks. No, they're our enemies. In the case for liberty, they are our enemies. They are not helping us. What you want to do is go back to gold or silver as actual currency for that very reason. To keep the status quo together. It's wrong. It's immoral. You're stealing money from taxpayers, because eventually this will create price inflation. And you're going to see food prices go through the roof and everything else just because you're changing the status of the dollar. Everything's going to go through the roof. It's so simple. How can you not understand this? You can't separate price inflation from monetary inflation because it is the same thing. It's inflation. Inflation is the expansion of the money supply, which affects prices. It's not the other way around. The Federal Reserve cannot stop the economy from... It can't stop it from cleansing itself, because that's what's going to happen. And boy, once you see interest rates at the Federal Reserve rise, we're going to see another bubble burst, and I think it's the actual dollar. It's going to collapse. If you think about it, every time the interest rates rise at the Fed, banks have to actually become responsible. So it calls in its debts by raising their interest rates on whatever loan, you know? So then the bubble bursts by investors taking money out of the market and throwing it back to the banks. Banks pay off the Federal Reserve, and where'd all the money go? It's gone. You want to think about the way Thomas Jefferson. You know what? I'm going to look up this quote. Inflation, deflation. He had his own quote. Hopefully, yeah, here we go. Thomas Jefferson. Man, I'm good at Google. Anyway, Thomas Jefferson said this: I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around the banks will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on their continent their fathers conquered. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. This is actually the quote that Craig on my show has tried to quote a couple times. But this is important. They knew this 200 years ago. Where are we now? Why don't we know about this? The inflation and deflation part. These two parts are kind of interconnected in the two powers of the Federal Reserve, the two main things that I worry about. It's the interest rates and actual currency, manipulation, monetary theory, and all this other crap. Excuse me. First, they went through quantitative easing and the bailouts and and all this, and the Jello. Never mind. So, first, the money supply is actually inflated, and the interest rates are lowered. The only way that deflation can really happen is by actually extracting the money from the banks and taking it out by whatever law that they create on their own, or they just raise the interest rates again. That's inflation and deflation through the Federal Reserve. And according to some Keynesian beliefs, inflation and deflation is created by capitalism on its own. What? No, the Fed creates the inflation and deflation. They make the money. It's not created by greed. The only way that according to this theory, prices rise because of greed. I can sort of understand that because money is needed to keep the business going. But they're just trying to keep up with the money supply. You need to look at the history of things. It's not created by greed. If you look at prices and the value of the dollar between 1860s or 1787 to 1913, let's look at that. The value of the dollar went up for 13%. Prices went down. Now prices are rising quite a bit. What's the difference? The Federal Reserve. Keynesians, you need to think. You need to think. And quickly, because you don't have much time. I'll just leave it at that. Have a good night.